Hello everybody. The other day I made a video on working the steps and how that can change your life and how that will change your life if you work it with sincerity and dedication. It will change your life. I decided to start making these videos because as a mental health professional, I'm recognizing that there are so many out there that are suffering. And unfortunately, I myself, and I know a lot of my peers in the profession, are having to turn away a lot of people because we're being inundated with phone calls. I would imagine that that's happening, in the medical field as well as the spiritual field as well. And I thought, well, I have been blessed with a sense of freedom and a sense of understanding and a sense of peace, at least for today, as long as I keep doing the work to maintain that. And one of those pieces is to be of service to others. And I truly and sincerely wish to offer these videos so that maybe it could be helpful to somebody. So as I said, I created a video the other day, a quick version of how to work all 12 steps with an issue that, specifically violence in the world that many of us struggle with. So feel free to watch that. It's full of information and I went through it quickly. And what I realized is that I probably should go through each of the steps one at a time, and get a little bit deeper into what they mean, because it's something, the wisdom that you gain by working the steps happens slowly and steadily and with more understanding from other people who have done it and who have found the peace within from doing so. So I'm going to go ahead and read the 12 steps to you, and today we're going to focus on step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. I like to say people, places, and things, and anything else, a behavior or a condition of mind that I suffer in, that our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will, our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Please do not be offended by the word God and Him as it is stated in the steps. This process can work for anybody, even if you believe in no God. This is about finding a higher power within each one of us that does exist. Step 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening. As a result of these steps, we tried carrying this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. So once again, these steps and the language that is used to describe them is perhaps outdated and perhaps not as inclusive to everyone's mindset and experience as we would like it to be. So I wanted to just invite you to keep stretching your mind open and come from a place of curiosity rather than discerning whether or not this resonates with you. Just be curious about it. And usually that is an opportunity to break through the limiting beliefs that hold us back. So let's dig into step 1 together. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. So let us break that down. Number 1, it is not just powerless over alcohol. We are powerless when we come into this world, unless we come in as an enlightened being. And I guess if you're like me, you're not enlightened. None of us are yet. That is something that is attained through a great deal of devotion. And that is, so we have to recognize that the human mind, the ego mind, puts us in a state of powerlessness. When we have a thought, a feeling, or a belief, or a habit that creates negative effects, and we can't control that or stop that or choose something positive for ourselves and in our behaviors, then that's powerlessness. Even though we know, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that, why did I do that again? That's powerlessness. A lot of us don't like to admit powerlessness. A lot of us, and especially because we're so ego driven, we like to think about powerlessness. We like to think that we have control. We spend a lot of time scheming about how to have control over people, places, and things. And sometimes we don't see that in ourselves. We don't see our controlling natures. We don't see us trying to be everyone's higher power with our opinions and our attitudes and our choices. So are you willing to recognize that if you have a human brain that's had a variety of experiences that have been painful and misleading you and misshaping your mind and your thinking, can you be humble enough to recognize that there is a part of you that is trying to be powerful from an egoic place, but you truly are powerless over that? Can you acknowledge your powerlessness? Can you acknowledge that when you fall into a hopeless state of mind and body, sickness, perhaps mental sickness, mental illness, emotional illness, physical illness, a sense of spiritual void and lack of fulfillment, and a lack of compassion and empathy for others, and stuck in judgment and fear and anger. If we keep going back to those places, which we all do, then that means we're powerless over it, because it does not feel good. And we've all been taught, most of us have been taught, that is not what we're here for, not what we're meant to be doing, not what's going to feel pure and peaceful. Okay? This is not about being to be perfect and to get the accolades of being a nice and kind person. This is about being truly in alignment with the values that we say we want to live up to. So first, I have to admit that I'm powerless over the twist in my mind, the stinking thinking, the programming of my brain, and therefore my habits that have created this little demon inside of me, this little monster inside of me that keeps repeating things that don't feel good and are not healthy, and creating and are not loving, and are violent on some level. I might not be going around punching people in the face, but am I having violent thoughts? Am I having violent judgments? Am I being divisive? Am I being harsh with myself or other people? That's violence, okay? So I'm powerless over all of that, and I'm powerless over maybe substances, in the case of an alcoholic, over alcohol that really, really, deteriorates the mind and blocks the higher power from being able to rise up and speak through that person. The power of goodness, the power of righteousness, the power of love, the power of an open mind, right? Those are all higher powers than each one of us alone in our little ego, right? Always trying to survive and trying to be right. So oftentimes we will repeat things and rely on substances and behaviors to squash that voice of goodness and righteousness. And why do we squash that? Because it's very hard to let go of the ego and the training of the brain that's been based on survival rather than truth, wisdom, and love. So it doesn't have to be just alcohol. It can be anxiety, it can be depression, it can be any substance, it can be any behavior, it can be any condition of mind that creates suffering. So we're powerless over it. And that our lives have become unmanageable. Now, if you're like me, I have a bit of a sense of a pride about being, okay in life. I went and got educated, and I try to do good, and I have my beautiful children, and I'm not a horrible person who's, out there creating atrocious violent acts, and I'm pulling myself together. I'm paying my bills, and I'm showing up every day in life. But what we have to recognize is the places, step one is all about humility and getting to those places of recognizing the patterns that are unmanageable, that we keep trying to manage with our power here rather than the power that is deep within our spirit, our soul, our true good nature, if you will. So we must recognize step one's all about flattening that pride and saying, you know what, I do have unmanageability in my life. My unmanageability might be about how I spend my money. My unmanageability might be how I eat. My unmanageability might be the fact that I'm angry a lot, or I'm depressed a lot, or I'm anxious a lot. My unmanageability is that I can't stop watching the news. My unmanageability are my judgments. My unmanageability that is perhaps, I'm in relationships with people, different kinds of relationships with people, and I keep getting feedback from them that tell me I have a certain character flaw that they're not comfortable with, and yet maybe I hear it, maybe deep down inside I hear it, and my heart hurts a little bit from that feedback, but then I keep doing it because it's unmanageable. Why is it unmanageable? Because my ego and because of the wounding in my life that's caused that habit. So I have to recognize that. I have to level my pride and be willing to become very humble and very honest with myself. Very honest, very humble. Okay, so is your life unmanageable? What areas are unmanageable if you're truly honest with yourself? And have you tried to change that, to transform that, and maybe have made a little progress here and there, or had periods of relief from it, but from food addiction, sex addiction, gambling addiction, spending addiction, shopping addiction, social media addiction, phone addiction, anxiety addiction, depression addiction. Yes, I called anxiety and depression addiction. It's addiction. We all have these things. So are you willing to let go of pride? Because the wonderful news is that you're not different than me. We're not unique. We all come into this world with a brain and an ego. and it is shaped by our experiences. Some of them are pleasant, and so we grasp for more pleasant, and some of them are horrible, and so we try to avoid the horrible. And as a result of that, the brain, which is simply a computer, all it is a computer that's full, frankly, of viruses, unless you were raised in an enlightened bubble, and which I don't know anybody who has, and it'd be cool to come across an enlightened person like that. But we all come in the same. We don't have the same experiences. We don't have the same family experiences. We don't have the same cultures. We don't have the same experiences with money or poverty. We don't have, or wealth, but we're all the same. We all suffer because of the negative habits and the attachments of our mind and body that are based on lies that we're always trying to control, and that we're seduced by. We're seduced by all of those things, and that throw us off track from finding that power that is greater than me, so that I can be more in alignment with the goodness, my good nature, my true good nature within. Not being a Miss Nicey Pants, but coming from a true divine place. It takes some work. It takes some dedication. It takes a leveling of the pride. It takes humility. Okay? So that is my explanation for step 1 today. I thank you for listening to me. And I encourage you to reach out with any questions or comments. I would love to be of service in any way that I'm capable. Have a good day.